Let's get real. Small talk is hard. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why small talk feels so hard and how to overcome it. In all these years traveling around the world and working with people on their communication skills, I've come to discover the 5 top reasons why people feel like small talk is so hard. The first one is fear of judgment. Do you remember when you were in first grade and you spoke out in class, you said something interesting or you questioned the teacher and that teacher shamed you, put you in the closet, they hit you with a ruler. I got hit with a ruler. And then you never wanted to speak out again. And maybe when you said something interesting, the kids called you stupid or ugly or they yelled at you and said, shut up. Well, that experience has weight and it carries you into your adult life. So when you actually say something interesting, and it could be something totally innocent, and then that person at work, especially your colleagues, just looks at you weird and or ignores you. I've been ignored. It can be devastating. So fear of judgment is a real thing, and that always leads to shame. When you are judged, you're made to feel ashamed, and oftentimes it's very subtle. Like, for example, if somebody says, how's your daughter this weekend? How's she doing at soccer practice? And you're saying, well, you know what? She sprung her knee. She's not that great. We had to go to the hospital. But, before we went to the hospital, she stayed home for a few days to get rest. And the parent could say, really? You didn't take her to urgent care right away? What kind of a parent are you? This type of stuff happens all the time. And all of a sudden, now you're at work having this whole big conversation about who you are as a parent and if you're doing the right thing. All you originally wanted to have an innocent conversation about how's your family doing this weekend. Number 2 is the pressure to impress. This one struck with me when I worked in different countries. I felt like I needed to justify why I was in that country, or justify why I was the only American in that role, or justify why I didn't speak the local language. And this is really difficult because instead of focusing on your work, you are trying to justify why you're there, or you're trying to impress. And it's super counterproductive. So later on, I learned that no matter what, you're not going to impress everyone. So don't you worry. You do the impression the best that you can and do the work that is good enough for you. And if you are proud of it, despite what somebody else thinks, you have to feel good in your skin and you have to feel like you've impressed yourself. Number 3, this one's important, is lack of genuine interest. So let's face it, some small talk topics can be meaningless and it's hard to connect with that other person if you're not interested. So for example, if somebody says, how are you? Or how's it going, mate? Any kind of they don't seem interested and they don't really care. They're just trying to fill the space in the room because they're uncomfortable that you're looking at them. Now you have to respond to that question, or you feel like you have to respond, but you're not interested. So how do you avoid that? Well, a couple of times, no matter what, in that moment, somebody is going to ask that question that's going to make you uncomfortable. So it's a matter of how you navigate that. If somebody says, how are you? You can say, I'm fine, and move on, wave, smile, and keep going. If you stay till the end of the video, I'm going to go over some strategies and tips of how to make small talk easier. So stay with me. Number 4 is overthinking. So a lot of the times when we're asked to think of responses to small talk, it messes up with the flow of conversation. We're having this conversation and somebody comes in and asks another question that disrupts the conversation. Or you're having a normal conversation with this person and then they ask an irrelevant question or one that has a different topic and you don't really know how to handle it. So you're trying to get a natural conversation, but if that person doesn't know how to converse, then they're going to go through these series of questions that are small talk that don't mean anything, and then you're stressed. So the other thing to struggle with small talk, and this is the 5th one, misalignment of expectation. So I'm expecting to have a deeper, meaningful relationship that I'm trying to build with you, and you're expecting that you need to just have a conversation because you're seeing me every day at work. So I'm trying to go deeper with you and you're trying to move away from me. You're trying to keep it light, and there's some friction and tension. So now we're trying to match our communication style and just trying to really connect as humans, and it's like a fitting a circle in a square. It just doesn't work. You get the point. So I think like what's important here to identify with small talk is how to fix those struggles. And like I mentioned, there's a few tips and strategies I've come up with. Number one is focus on the connection, not perfection. What makes you two connect? Is it a specific topic? Is it a specific experience or memory? And focus on that. So once you've shifted your focus from trying to sound interesting to just having a conversation or simply being interested in others, that's like the big step. That's the big step forward. And you're not going to be as stressed out. So it's really interesting is that when you start having these conversations, what will happen eventually, you'll get into deeper topics. And if not, it's okay, because at least you tried. And even if you don't succeed in having more meaningful conversations, you've succeeded in having small talk. That's half the battle. 2, common ground. So instead of sticking to generic topics of like, how's your day and what's something exciting that has happened to you recently, you can kind of ask a more personal question, which isn't intrusive, of saying like, how are you? Is everything all right? I just noticed that you weren't feeling so great today. And maybe put your hand on their shoulder, or you don't have to touch the person, but you can really have that self-awareness and that awareness of that person's feelings. So it's really important. Number 3 is be curious. If you are naturally curious, you will ask more questions, and there will be a series of questions that could lead into more engaging conversations. So I always remind myself is, how do I make this situation less difficult or awkward for the person? Like, can I ask small talk questions that are not so difficult for the other person to respond? So for example, I ask usually, what are you doing after work? Is there anything interesting that you got going on? It invites a more of a deeper conversation. I mean, that person could go to the gym or a restaurant, and then I can ask, hey, can I join you? Or can we set up a time to talk? So you just want to ask questions that will lead into other questions, and that's important. Number 4 is give yourself permission to be imperfect. You may have these small talk questions and somebody is going to look at you awkward. They may not want to talk to you again. It's okay. The key thing is just to keep asking, and as you ask questions or as you give the answers to the person that's giving you the questions, you end up like feeling more comfortable in your own skin, and you see that there's patterns in the type of questions that people ask. So that's really interesting, and that leads me to the next point. Practice. Keep asking questions, no matter how awkward they are, no matter how difficult, no matter if they respond to you or not. Don't give up. If one person doesn't want to talk to you, it doesn't mean another colleague doesn't want to talk to you. And it's difficult because we sometimes are a little bit too hard on ourselves, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, it's you and the other person, and there's no need to feel intimidated by anyone, because we're all human. We're just trying to get connections. We're trying to just feel better every day and make our lives easier. And we have to run into these people, whether they're in your family or at your work. Like, you're going to see these people. Eventually, you're going to have to ask questions. Unless you're a hermit who wants to just be in a cave, you might as well do that and hibernate. Be a bear. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, I'm going to be putting up more videos about communications and like business English. So make sure to check out my playlist. This one's communication. This one is business English. So come check it out. And as always, do the best that you can every day.